Today, I want to talk about the initial stages of abortion recovery. And by that, I mean your body goes through a lot of changes when you have an abortion, whether it be at the clinic or from the pill and you're doing it at home. That act of the body being released from your body, the abortion in itself, while it is extremely emotional, it also has a lot to do with your body, and allowing that part of you to heal. A lot of times I think in a way that might be easier than the emotional healing. Actually, I know it is. And I'll use me as an example. When I had my abortion, I guess there were several things, and they just didn't make you aware of. Yeah, that was before internet and all that kind of good stuff. So it was a while ago. But knowing really what's going to happen to your body, and it's painful, and when we don't allow our bodies to heal because we are having problems accepting having the abortion. Not I don't mean by not accepting with our heads, the logic part of it, but really with the heart. And they actually say the heart has more to do with your brain than any other part. There's more taking place. I still can't think of the right word, from the heart to the head than from the head to the body. I know when I first learned that, and I was like, wait, what? But the more I read about it, and I was like, that I found it very interesting that there is more to do from our heart to our head than anything else. I, just a little side note there, but allow your body to heal. It takes time and it's going to be different for everyone. And your body will tell you, listen to your body, see the signals. What is it telling you? And that means, food, staying hydrated through water, limiting somewhat of your daily exercise. So, like I said, I was going to tell you about my experience. Yeah, I had no idea. So when I had it, I still remember the sound, and it was just gut wrenching, and I was hysterical. I mean, I was just a hysterical mess. And I, I remember the nurse being there holding my hand, asking me if I was going to be okay. Well, it's not like they could stop in the middle of everything. And so it proceeded. And, I felt, crampy and just my body it didn't feel right. I don't know how else to explain it. My body felt off. And of course it did because of the abortion, of that act. And it is hard on you physically. So several days go by and I kept feeling worse and worse and worse to the point where I actually couldn't get out of bed. I could barely raise my head. And I was living with my parents. And I remember my dad walking into the bedroom saying, "Hey, look what's going on. Why are you so sick?" And that's when I told him what I did. And I was running a fever. I couldn't eat. Like I said, I could barely move. And so they hustled me into the emergency room. And I was in the hospital, as I remember it, about a week. I was severely dehydrated. I also had an infection because they did not get the baby completely out. So it was causing an infection to the point where it was serious enough. I almost died. Even after that, I still had to let my body heal. And it took, for me anyway, and I'm pretty healthy, it took several months. And then comes the emotional healing. Now, that does take longer. It can take years. And give yourself grace, please. Allow your body to heal emotionally. That's the bigger lift. That can be the big challenge. If we don't allow ourselves to heal. It could be an abortion from 3 months ago. It could be an abortion from 30 years ago. The healing needs to take place. And I hope you let that happen when you're ready. And I had to be ready. I would say 30 years after I had the abortion, because I was beating myself up big time. And, I was asking for forgiveness from God. It wasn't forgiveness from God that I needed. I had that. It was forgiveness from myself, to learn to love myself again and to really, truly forgive me. And that takes time. So that's kind of like a huge fast forward there. But when we don't allow ourselves to heal physically, we are likely not allowing ourselves to heal emotionally. And you hold it all inside. You start telling yourself, what do I do? Where do I go? What do I say? No one would ever understand what is going on inside me. So we hold it back, and then time goes by and it comes up again for us. And we're like, what do I do? I don't know what to do with this. I don't want to think about it. I want to feel these feelings. I just want it to stop. And then we start to numb. And by numb, we ignore the feelings, pretend they don't exist. It didn't happen. I don't have time for this now. We need to make time. Until we can make the time to recover emotionally from having an abortion, that story will continue to replay in your head over and over and over again. And sometimes, this is what happened for me, that story got really, really loud. And I've mentioned it before. I would see signs, roadside signs like, save a life, don't abort, or something to that effect. And then I was in church one day and I see in this short little video clip of someone talking about abortion recovery. She had actually went through it, and just sitting there watching that, it was like I knew there was no part of my being that was not absolutely certain I needed to go through that. I needed to go through that recovery because I was so tired. I was exhausted from carrying this around with me year after year after year and beating myself up over and over again. And we think before we're ready, we're thinking, this happened a long time ago. Why is this still coming up? Why do I feel worse now than when I did when I had the abortion? Because those feelings, they keep replaying and they grow. No matter how many times we push it down, how much ignoring we do, pretending it didn't happen, really not wanting to face it. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's not. And it can get uncomfortable. How much more uncomfortable do we have to get before we start taking care of this for ourselves? And it just keeps replaying over and over again. It's like a bad movie. Does it stop? Yes, it will stop when you decide it's time to recover, to release all of this, the shame, the guilt, the anger, the grief, because with abortion comes grief. There is a loss of life and it's not easy. It is possible. It is very possible to get to the other side. And I'm not saying that from time to time it doesn't, certain memories pop up. They do. But I also know for me at this point in time that those memories, I have those to share with you, that you are not alone in this. We choose if we were going to be alone or if we are going to allow ourselves to connect with someone else who's been through this, has walked through the dark of it to get to the other side, to be able to forgive, not only yourself. For me, I also had to forgive the nurse and the doctor. And I'll explain why. After I had the abortion, after I got better from the infection and I got home, everyone told me, call that clinic, talk to the doctor, tell them what happened. And so I did because, essentially I was still a kid. I might have been 20 something years old, but I didn't know anything about that stuff. So yeah, I called. And I remember telling them what happened because one of the biggest things and one of the reasons I didn't want to go to the hospital is I had signed a document that said I would not go to the emergency room until I called that clinic first. I was too far gone. I had to go to the emergency room. And I kept telling everyone, I shouldn't be here. I have to call them first. I have to call them first. So anyway, I get out of the hospital and I call them and I tell them what's going on or what had happened. And I remember the tone of the doctor was very cold, very hard, and very, very matter of fact, which, that just made me feel really icky. But he's like, well, quite frankly, I shouldn't have done it at all. You were too far gone. You know, not too far gone. You were too far into the pregnancy. You were past I think it was 90 days. And by law, I was beyond that. No one told me that. No one ever told me that. And it was like a gut punch. It's like, and that just truly, it broke my heart. And I have said it in other podcasts. Had I known then I was too far along, had I known then what this would have done to me, I don't think I would have done this. I think I would have walked in, told my dad, and then I would have given it up for adoption. But at the time, I felt like I was backed into a corner. I had no choice and I was scared. But looking back on it, and I think a lot of us do, but now comes the point of allowing yourself to heal, allowing yourself to forgive. And maybe it is forgiving that doctor at the clinic or forgiving the clinic that gave you that pill to have a home abortion. We can start, if we can forgive, actually, when we forgive, we release ourselves from that jail that we put ourselves in unknowingly, most of the time, I would say. But we release ourselves. The door unlocks. Now we make a choice. Do we walk through that door to the other side to learn to love ourselves again? And really, to love that doctor, that nurse, that clinic. Now, that one, that took me a little bit, but I did forgive them. I didn't realize how much anger I had stored in me over that until I started working through that. I was a little shocked, but yeah, there was a lot of anger around that and a lot of hurt. And I had to forgive them to release myself from that grip. And as time has gone by, I just kind of thinking back on that time when I was working through forgiving the clinic, the doctor, the nurse, I remember thinking about it in hopes of, I hope they changed their profession. I hope they stopped doing this. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, if they did or they didn't. Quite frankly, I don't even remember the name of the clinic. I blocked a lot of that out. And I think we do that in a self-protective way. We're not ready to remember all the things. And for example, me telling you that I had called them, or actually that I was telling everyone before they took me to the emergency room that I can't be here. I have to call the clinic. They told me I had to call the clinic. I signed a document. I did not remember that until this recording. So when you are ready, memories start to come forward and you work through those memories and the release is still coming. The healing is still coming. It's not a one and done. Um, this statement of, I don't know, for example, I forgive the nurse, I forgive the doctor. It's not that simple. Is letting it sit, acknowledging those feelings that you have around that particular situation, which I had to do. I had to just let those feelings really come up and acknowledge them and start to work through them and then start the forgiveness. It's not a snap of the finger. Our emotions are not quickly turned off or turned on. They can be numbed and you can ignore them and we can pretend, but they're still there. They're in the background and they're still there. So, is healing physically possible from an abortion? Yes, it is. I don't know your circumstance. Based on mine, I'm going to say yes. And I was extremely fortunate that, I told my dad what happened. And he understood really how sick I was. And like I said, hustled me into the emergency room. And I was there for a week. I was really sick and, voicing my concern about this document that I signed. And they're like, call them and tell them what happened. And you know the rest of that story. But your body can heal. Emotionally, you can heal, but you have to allow yourself that to happen. When we shove it behind a door, in a box, numb it, ignore it, and eventually, if we do it enough, we just don't feel it. And then something comes along our path and it can trigger a memory. It's like, and then we do it again. We ignore it, we shove it down, we pretend it didn't happen. and then something happens and it triggers a memory. And honestly, it could be a trigger of, I've seen it happen two different ways, where the woman had the abortion and she immediately wanted to replace that child because she lost that child, is the best way I can kind of explain that. So those feelings stopped, those memories stopped. And then there's the other side. And this was more me. I didn't want kids. I have two children now and I love them both dearly. But I was also very anti being pregnant. I didn't want to be pregnant ever again. So I was pregnant the first time I had my daughter. I got pregnant the second time I aborted and never wanted another child. My son, I had him 10 years later, and that was, well, let me tell you, a big surprise because I had gotten so sick because of the infection. They told me I would never have children again, which was hard. It was very hard to take that because I do love children. Even though I didn't want any more kids, I could have changed my mind somewhere and wanted kids. Well, I hadn't, but surprise, surprise, I was pregnant with my son and I love him to pieces too. So that it could go either way, where you want multiple children to forget, to make it go away, or you don't want children. And I think it's very different for each one of us. And then emotionally, where are you at emotionally? Have you put away those feelings because you don't ever want to feel them again? They're uncomfortable, they're hard, they're sad. There's tears. Can you bring that back out slowly, working with someone? And that's why I talk about this so much. I know what I went through. I don't want anyone else to go through that and to walk that path alone. And that's why I took the time to go through the recovery myself. That was not why I did that, but I did that for me. But when I got to the end of it, I knew that I wanted to bring this to you to help you move through that, to forgive, to release, to allow the emotions slowly, layer by layer, and safely in a very safe environment. And I've known this for a long time, and I kept pushing it back because, abortion is a heavy, tough subject. And I got to the point where it just kept calling and calling to me to do this. So that's why I do this now. I do this for you. There is very specific program for it that I have that is very, very individualized because I do not feel like one size fits all. But if you're interested in learning how to work with me, I would invite you to send me a DM. I'll put my social media handles down in the show notes. I know I say this over and over again. Still working on that website, gotta tell you. Still not done. Maybe before the end of the year, but probably in January, to be quite honest. Yeah, something I struggle with is tech in that nature. It's just like, so yeah. Are you ready? Are you tired of feeling exhausted? Tired of carrying this around with you year after year? And you just want it to go away. The forgiving, the healing, the abortion happened. There's nothing that's going to change that. But how we move through it, how we work through it, therein lies the answers. So I look forward to hearing from you. We can hop on a discovery call. Like I said, hit me up on the DMs and we'll put some time together, like 10, 15 minutes, get to know each other, make sure that this is right for you, and we'll talk soon.